reform as anyone else does. These folks have just as much a right to try to derail this entire process as anyone else does. But we have the right to know who they are and who is paying them for their efforts. These guys are pros. This is an industry. This is Beltway politics being organized and played out in town halls across the country. And as we have said before, and I fear we will have to continue saying and saying and saying again, this should be reported as such. In the days that followed our reporting about Dick Armey's role in opposing health reform, he resigned his position as senior policy advisor at the giant lobbying and legal services firm DLA Piper. Dick Armey has continued his effort to kill health reform, though, including one time when he shouted me out at a rally and got my name wrong. I have to say it was an honor just to be mentioned. So at least some of the public rage against health reform was fomented and organized and mysteriously financed inside the Washington Beltway. One strand of pure baloney used to foment the rage was the made-up idea of death panels. Up next, the birth of the deathers. Do you remember how the death panels thing started? It was not Sarah Palin. Stick around. You know who's not all that excited about fixing America's current healthcare system? The companies that comprise America's current healthcare system. You see, they have a pre-existing condition of awesome profitability. Please don't cure us. The level of resistance among health industries is directly proportional to the level of ginned-up hysteria about the possibility of America finally getting health reform. Among the most hysterical and completely bogus drivers of public opposition to health reform has been the idea that the U.S. government plans to determine which senior citizens among us should die and when. They are the death panels, and they don't exist. You know, the Rachel Maddow show has done what we could to figure out why so many people believe the death panels do exist. In 1993, the last time a newly elected Democratic president was pursuing health care reform, two of his most formidable foes were Harry and Louise, a fictional middle-aged couple sitting at a kitchen table talking smack about how dangerous it would be to reform the American healthcare system. Harry and Louise, of course, weren't just a freelance, actual middle-class couple concerned about cutting into the insurance industry's profit margins. They were actors. They were hired by the insurance industry to try to sink the reform plan. Well, incidentally, the same actors who portrayed Harry and Louise back in 1993 this year have been hired by pro-healthcare reform forces to try to sell the idea of reform. So the corporate interests opposed to changing the system they profit from so handsomely, and their allies in the conservative movement have found new actors to sit at a fictional kitchen table and talk smack about how dangerous it would be to reform healthcare this time. Here they are. They're the new Harry and Louise, and this time the reason they say changing the healthcare system is so scary is because, you guessed it, healthcare reform is really a secret plot to kill old people and to try to make people have more abortions.
They won't pay for my surgery. What are we going to do?
But, honey, you can't live this way.
And to think that Planned Parenthood is included in the government-run health care plan and spending tax dollars on abortions. They won't pay for my surgery, but we're forced to pay for abortions.
Our greatest generation denied care. Our future generation denied life. Call your senator. Stop the government takeover of health care. Family Research Council Action is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
You got that? The real agenda lurking behind health care reform is a secret plot to kill old people and to promote abortion. That ad was just released by the conservative group, the Family Research Council. Now, you know about the conspiracy theory that the president secretly isn't really the president because he's secretly foreign. Those conspiracists are called birthers, right? Well, Christopher Beam at Slate.com has christened the healthcare reform as a secret plot to kill old people conspiracists as the deathers, which is sort of brilliant. The deathers theory is being advanced not only by far-right advocacy groups like the Family Research Council, it's also being advanced in Congress by Republicans like Virginia Foxx of North Carolina.
It will not put seniors in a position of being put to death by their government.
The deathers theory is also being advanced by Republicans like Congressman Louis Gohmert on talk radio.
We have been battling this socialist health care, the nationalization of health care that is going to absolutely kill senior citizens. They'll put them on lists and force them to die early.
The deathers theory is also being advanced as of today on the editorial page of the conservative newspaper, The Washington Times. It should probably be noted that the editorial cites as its sources right-wing talk show host Mark Levin, the Red State blog, and FoxNews.com. But as the deathers theory leaches from the wingnut fringe into the mainstream of efforts to stop healthcare reform, consider where it started. Consider its source. When you start digging, it turns out that this theory all traces back to a single person, a person named Betsy McCoy. She's a director of a medical device company called Cantel Medical Corporation. She's also a former director of a biotech company called Genta. She's also a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, a conservative think tank funded by some of the biggest pharmaceutical giants in the country. Betsy McCoy is the person who started the whole conspiracy theory that the government promoting people getting living wills, which the government has done for 20 years, is somehow now a secret plot to kill old people.
Congress would make it mandatory, absolutely required, that every 5 years people in Medicare have a required counseling session that will tell them how to end their life sooner.
Wrong. Not true. Not in the bill. Not there. Totally false. But nevertheless, Ms. McCoy has seeded that idea on the editorial page of the New York Post and in talk radio interviews with hosts like Fred Thompson. And that's been enough for it to take root on the right. Now, Betsy McCoy has also done this before. In 1994, she wrote an attack on the Bill Clinton healthcare reform proposal in a magazine called The New Republic. That article was so riddled with errors that the magazine ultimately distanced themselves from it, even though they published it in the first place. But that didn't stop the opponents of healthcare reform back then from citing her disproven attacks over and over and over again. And so far, nothing is stopping the opponents of healthcare reform now from doing the same thing. The deathers theory is everywhere on the right. It's on the House floor, it's on talk radio, it's in TV ads, and it is a script, a nonsense, totally made up, totally disprovable script written by the corporate interests who have wanted to block healthcare reform forever because they're making a mint off of the way it is now. Welcome back to 1993.
This is a special edition of the Rachel Maddow Show. To health in a handbasket.
The desperate fight to stop health reform from happening has been paved with some really bad behavior, with vigor and venom generally reserved for the tragic results of ill-advised elective foreign wars. Some Americans confronted their elected representatives about the possibility of reforming our lousy system, our system which is much less effective than it is expensive. The summer of town hall rudeness took flight during the August recess for the House and Senate, and as grassrootsy and as spontaneous as it was all supposed to seem, we discovered that not all groundswell movements spring from real roots. As of Friday, the U.S. House of Representatives is officially on recess, and they are on recess for the rest of August. And while that sounds like an awesome summer vacation, what it means for House members is, as tradition dictates, they go home to their districts and they meet with their constituents about all the hot issues on the political stove right now. Hottest among them, of course, is health care reform. Now, whatever the political issues are, this recess happens every year, and the meetings with constituents thing happens every year. What's different about this year? Well, I'll let you judge for yourself. To my mind, this is not your typical meeting with constituents.
Government agency has the government taken over. It's run beautifully and make money. Sir, we are not... No, please tell me. Please tell me. That would be a relevant question. I asked you a question. Please answer it.
Okay, if you stop talking, I'd be happy to answer. The overwhelming weight of the scientific evidence is that global warming is real. No one is talking about the government taking over health.
Oh, no.
Democratic Congressman Tim Bishop of New York being shouted down and overwhelmed by a belligerent, organized crowd of hecklers that had no interest in letting him get a word out as he attempted to answer their questions. This could just be a one-off thing. This could just be a one-off experience of badly behaved constituents somewhere mad at their congressman about something or other. Turns out this was not at all a one-off bad meeting. It turns out this is happening around the country. Here's Texas Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett. Yes, there are still elected Democrats in Texas. Here's Congressman Doggett facing a similar scene at a town hall event over the weekend. This one took place at a grocery store in Austin. What you may or may not be able to make out there is the crowd yelling, "Just say no, just say no." They're holding signs depicting Congressman Doggett as